Good evening and welcome to Wild Ginger Running with the Scotney takeover still happening. I'm Marcus.
I'm Jen. We don't normally do that.
Well, we're just mixing it up. And we've got Sherlock. You might notice we're on different sides tonight. Sorry, that's just another bit of technical glitch going on. We're on different sides tonight. Normally this is the way we sit on the sofa when we're watching a laptop, and we noticed last few weeks Sherlock has been a little bit kind of, well, just
annoying.
Yeah, annoying. Yeah, behaving like a toddler almost. So we decided to sit beside where we normally sit, watching TV. So we've got a great guest on tonight. Who have we got with us tonight, Jen?
We have got Kim Collison, and I'm very excited because we've got absolutely loads to ask him about. I don't think there's anything that he hasn't done. I mean, I can give you a little intro, Kim. We've got a GB runner. Is it the World Mountain Championships? You've 24-hour, the Lakeland record holder. You've got, I don't know, so many wins. Lakeland 50, Lakeland Trails, Arc of Attrition. You've done Skyrunning, fell running. Absolutely loads.
Good evening, Kim. Welcome to Wild Ginger Running. And you're based up in Cumbria, aren't you?
Yeah, up in the Lake District. Always sunny up here in the Lake District.
Oh.
Are you sure? I think I've been a few times when it wasn't sunny. In fact, I can't remember many times when it has been sunny.
No, you make the most of it when it is.
But you are quite close to the fells, aren't you? You're just off the Blencathra Hills.
Yeah, I've been really lucky that I literally live on the back of Blencathra, up Suter Fell, and I'm on to Blencathra within an hour. Which made great training for lockdown periods, being able to get on the fell straight away.
Yeah, how's this? Are we on number 3 lockdown? How's that going for you at the moment?
Oh, I think it gets slightly tougher each time. I mean, the novelty of the first one, and you kind of get through it. I found I got through it quite well, but now it's just getting a little bit tedious. But it's the right thing to do, and I'm happy to be doing it. It just mentally becomes harder, I think.
And when you're not running, you're a coach, that's right, isn't it? Is that your full-time job at the moment? Are you still doing some outdoor work?
No, I'm a full-time coach now, like you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. Were you not doing a bit of gardening as well, do I hear, on the grapevine? Or?
Yeah, probably about a year ago now, just to set up the business. I was doing some part-time gardening to coexist while I built up a client base. And now I'm full-time coach, which is where I wanted to be.
Brilliant. And what kind of athletes are you coaching? Is it primarily for the fell running or ultra marathons and mountains?
Primarily ultra marathons, whether that's Bob Graham's or Arc of Attrition or a few fell running as well, but mainly ultra distances.
Yeah, I didn't even mention that you're your winter Bob Graham record, and you've done the summer Bob Graham. I couldn't fit that into the intro.
Yeah, we're going to cover a lot of different stuff. But how did you end up? Are you born and bred Cumbrian, or have you kind of made your way up to that part of the country?
No, I'm originally from Hertfordshire, and started off my running at Tring Running Club as a young secondary school student, so just got into the running at that age. And then it wasn't until a period of probably about 5 years travelling abroad that I ended up settling in Cumbria, primarily for the outdoor education and the opportunities. It had to be a stunning place to keep me settled.
And were you running when you moved to Cumbria?
Not so much. I'd become pretty unfit and had lived a lifestyle with lots of booze and even smoked at that stage for a few years. And now, and then when I moved here, that all stopped, and I was starting to realise I had been quite fit when I was younger, as a student, or before student age. And I realised that I wasn't that fit anymore, and I was doing an orienteering event, and I was huffing and puffing, and getting beaten by vet 60s and thinking this is and so you start training and change all that.
And so where did that so was that training while you were working, because you worked for Outward Bound at Ullswater? Were you running then already, or was that kind of the beginning of the running?
Yeah, I kind of, as soon as I got back from travelling, I started to run, and then I pretty immediately got a job at Outward Bound. I was quite lucky, they were recruiting at that time. In the end, I spent a decade working for the trust in the out there education, taking students camping, climbing, paddling, journeying, and then trying to run, bike, paddle at that stage. Early on, it was discipline training for a wide variety. I was passionate about adventure racing and had this big goal to, I'd watched as a student these big races like the Raid Wars Challenge on TV, and I always wanted to do that and get to that level. So it was always from the mountain biking, how can I get better? And so it was a wide spectrum of sports. So if I wasn't working, I was pretty much training a lot of endurance.
And you did get to quite a high level with adventure racing, didn't you? I didn't realise that was kind of before the running took off.
Yeah. I went to 3 separate world championships with 2 different teams. I think one of my toughest race was the first world championships I did in France in 2012, which was like a 7.5 day journey across the Alps all the way to the Mediterranean. And literally we were the last team to complete the full course within the time limit, and we were pretty broken by the end of it. But the reward at the end when you crossed the finish line was just that set everything in motion, I think, for wanting more and more of that sort of challenge and reaching those goals, which just get bigger and harder or faster and improving that way.
Yeah, Joe Faulkner has commented saying that he remembers you competing in ace races with your dad when you were 16 years old. So was that because that 10 years ago? We're talking.
Yeah. Though it was ace races, sort of 5-hour or even 2-day ventures were split into 5 stages over those 2 days. And my dad was competitive, and I think I just got it from him, really. And we always were driven at that stage to do well. So I learned a lot of skills, below the age of 16.
So were you kind of brought up quite outdoorsy then, with your dad and the kind of competitive in the running? Was he a runner as well?
Yeah, he got into the running fairly late. He got into the London Marathon and getting fit, and then there was a paddling part to it. He did a lot of what was called raft racing at the stage, which was tin barrels and a frame down the River Wye and on some canals. And,
we did that in Derbyshire. I was thinking you were going to say some high elite sport, and I was like, must not open my mouth about the barrels and the planks and things, but that's okay.
No, but it was that. So he went to endurance, and then that just spread into multi-sport, and as ace races came along, and then there was at the club there was Rick Ansell and Kevin Harding, who knew about the lakes and fell running and OMS, and they did the OM every year and did really well, so they got pulled into that direction quite easily. And so I remember doing Saunders as a young lad as well, and learning those navigation skills and getting that sense of things. And then Scouts all the time, lots of courses up in Scotland, always taken to the Lake District, Wales. So, we had lots of time as kids. And I wasn't really very good at football, but I was very good at running. So I kind of excelled in the cross-country area at school. And I think that sparked that passion. for lifelong running.
Yeah, I can kind of understand that, being rubbish at football and preferring to
I just
run.
played football, to be honest.
It was just me and coordination, kicking a ball. Coordinating and running, great, but trying to kick a ball in the direction where a goal is... I almost had to imagine the goal was in the other direction, and I could probably get it towards the goal. So you found yourself up in the Lake District working at Allsworth, and you started the running. So how then did you start trail running first and then discover ultra running? But I suppose if you've been doing the Saunders and the mountain marathons, there was already that inclination about ultra running. How did the ultra running then come around?
I guess I never really differentiated it as a separate sport. That it just all extended into one thing. It just didn't matter about the duration of what you did. I guess my first real ultra run would be the Bob Graham, which because my dad did it 12 years before I did it, it was always going to be what I was going to try to emulate what he had done. So that was the first real big challenge I was aiming at, and I always knew I would complete it. It was just how well I could complete it. Could I do it better than him?
What was your dad's time?
It was something like 23 and a half hours. There was like 4 of them all going around together, and then they split up towards the end, and they all got it done. Which wasn't bad for 4 guys from Hertfordshire that couldn't train, and specifically in the mountains all the time. So yeah, when I came and did it, it was about 19 hours, 21 minutes I think was my time. So.
And was your dad there? Was he able to be there and support you at that time?
No, unfortunately, part of the reason why I was doing it is because he passed away as a 47-year-old with a heart attack.
Oh, how sad.
One of those things that hold in your memory, and you try and go, these are the passions, and they're my passions as well. And
I'm sure you've passed that on to all the children that you've worked with over the years, and your job as well.
Of course, yeah. Challenge and reward.
So you'd done the Bob Graham, and then how do you follow that? What was next on the agenda for you?
For me, I guess it became the adventure racing was more the passion, and then the shorter fell racing. I was really getting into doing racing constantly in the Lake District, from one fell race to the next. But the real big goals were, could I do a big adventure race, and then what was it? And in 2013, I got an entry to CCC, and then I think that sparked the passion for ultra, and actually I could be reasonably good doing ultra more than adventure racing, and I think I was frustratingly 11th place, and I think that sparked a lot of time going back to the festival, always after that elusive top 10. My best result ever so far.
We've got a picture up of you on the screen now, which I think is from TDS. But yeah, it looks great.
Amazing. So for those who aren't aware of what CCC is, it's part of a UTMB races based in Chamonix around Mont Blanc, and CCC is the kind of the half, isn't it? It's the kind of 100k, so it's 60 miles, but it's still a very tough, because it's a bit shorter. It tends to be a little bit faster, doesn't it? And the effort is a little bit harder, where UTMB tends to, it still goes off at a crazy pace.
That's really like the easy one.
It's easy, far from it. But I mean, TDS is pretty much the hardest one, though, isn't it? That's kind of, other than
well, Kim's done all 3, so we can ask him which he thinks is the hardest one.
Well, I think the terrain is harder on the TDS. I mean, there's a lot more time spent on rougher paths and off paths. So I think now that it's extended in distance, it's very equatable to UTMB itself in terms of time, probably. Whereas UTMB is on the the main trail and main motorway. Although it's still a lot of ascent and a lot of descent and a long way, so they're all hard.
Do you normally go over and kind of recce it beforehand, or spend a bit of time in the Alps training for it? Do you try and get any preparation?
Yeah, varying years. I try and go across. The year I did finish UTMB in 25th place, I spent a couple of weeks out there, did a camping hiking round for at least half of it, and then did some acclimatization up in some huts and just getting used to the altitude and being there in enough time to do that. And I think that really helped, having that knowledge of what to expect, and being prepared. It's not a lot have all the time.
Yeah, because as a coach, we can tend to work a lot with clients doing, and athletes doing UTMB or CCC, heading over to it, kind of tend to be quite big goals. Is there one kind of piece of advice you would kind of say to somebody who's like, I've entered CCC this year because the entries have been open and people kind of know their places, or I've got an entry in UTMB? As a coach, what would be your one kind of bit of nugget you'd say to them, right, this is what I'd really kind of focus on, or this is where you want to be taking your training to?
I think it's trying to get a sense of what feels right on climbs, and the sort of race, and try and stick to that race pace plan from the start.
No matter what everybody else is doing.
No matter what everyone else does, and that it will go off ridiculously fast. Stick to your plan, and you will be rewarded by the end. In the last third, where you still feel okay rather than awful, you start to come through people and finish in a positive place rather than scraping to the end because you can.
Brilliant. Yeah, that's a great bit of advice. Yeah.
I've just got to try and act that out now.
I think we were just saying that you kind of had it from both sides at the UTMB races. You've had some good finishes, but you've also had the DNFs as well.
Yeah, for me, it's that risk reward scenario. That the more you do stuff, you can complete it. So you want to improve on your performance, and because it's the best, most elite level there is, you're always trying to risk pushing a little bit too hard to get the best out of yourself, and then sometimes you fall on the wrong side of the scales, and you blow up, or something goes wrong, and so it ends in a DNF. So it's that sort of risk reward ratio. Depending on what your goal is at the race.
And is that reason why you've had some DNFs in the past on the race, and where it's at 50-50, if you just kind of overcooked it, just pushed it a little bit too hard, would you say?
Yeah, two of them it's been pushing too hard and overcooking it, and just getting it slightly wrong. And then one was I shouldn't have been on the start line. I was injured before the start and thought I would just go and enjoy it, and soon realised after 70k that it wasn't going to work.
yeah
It's so iconic, sometimes you don't make sensible decisions.
And it is so iconic, isn't it? The atmosphere there is such an amazing, it's like no other kind of race around there. But then you went, so you've done that, you kind of got into CCC, and then you got into a bit more of the UK scene as well, because I remember we had a bit of a run together in 2015 at the kind of Lakeland 50, which was the British Ultra Championships as well.
Yeah, the 2014 I think it was.
Yeah, I think it might have been.
Was it 2014? Okay.
Because it was billed as the British Trail Championships, and it attracted a good field for the era, and it was probably about 5 or 6 of us that were potential all for the win. And I remember must have been 5 of us going out from the start, going pretty hard. And
it was a really hot day as well, wasn't it?
Really hot, really hot, humid day. Marcus took the. I've tried that last year. Coach. I'm going to pace sensible this time.
Yeah, Marcus had a few more years' experience than you guys that went off that quick.
I think was I 40 then? I think I may have turned the vet. I think it was one of my first or second ultras as a vet. So.
And then,
yeah.
But then Stu Mills was in the ones that went off, wasn't he?
Yeah. And then by Mardale, I was like the last man standing, so not too far in. And I was just in my own world. I think I even swam near Kentmere in the stream just to try and cool off.
I think I saw you just coming into Kentmere. Yeah, I was at the checkpoint.
And I think I was probably suffering a little bit towards Ambleside and slowing down. Luckily, I think I had a good feed and sort out of food at that point, so that when suddenly Marcus comes motoring up behind on the flat bit and Chapel style and tries to go straight past me at 1,000,000 miles an hour, so I right heels hanging. I was hanging just as he was trying to push and drop me. You know, it's that game of cat and mouse. And then suddenly Marcus started to get the cramp on one of the styles, and that was like, okay.
It's interesting. I think your blog and both my blogs about race, we both were commenting about that kind of pace. I think we were setting nearly 6-minute miling or something when I kind of caught you up, and I think we didn't say it to each other, but writing out or reading our blogs, we were both, one of us thinking, one of us is going to blow, one of us is the wheels are going to come up at some point. And unfortunately, I was just maybe turning the screw a bit too much and cooked it that bit too much and ended up losing you as you were climbing out from Dungeon Gill. But yeah, it was a good battle, wasn't it? It was a good race. It was proper.
It was proper racing, and
it's a shame that nobody else sees that apart from you two, because I saw you kind of a few miles later and I had no idea what had happened between you two.
I guess the only people that got a sense of it was suddenly that the guys in Chapel Star at the aid station where we both were together and were neck and out at the same time, and apart from that, it's only people on the screen seeing, oh, he's catching, he's getting caught, and then he's caught, and wait and see what's next going to happen. But, it was a cool race, and not quite the outcome for Marcus, but it was one for me.
Yeah, it's the joys of ultras, though.
Yes, yeah. Sometimes you nail it, and sometimes you don't, like blowing up and DNFing at UTMB. So yeah. I think Danny Kendall summed it up really well, because he came in 3rd place in it because he dropped quite badly early on and then managed to pick up, and like Martin Cox ended up falling, DNFing. There was a couple of other people. In fact, Damien Hall was. We might know of some ultra runner now called Damien Hall. He was almost just behind me when we was first going round our main loop.
Oh, yeah,
we got a fantastic photo of him in some really fetching ultra running kit.
Looked like he borrowed it from P.
Yeah.
Lost property or something. Before his sponsored days.
But Danny was commenting about how kind of fast it was, and at that pace maybe only 1 or 2 was going to survive.
He said if 8 of you go off that fast, only 1 of you's going to finish.
So, but that result then meant also you were selected for your first GB vest as well.
Yeah, with that on my CV, it meant getting the first best for GB, and that was probably one of my proudest moments. Always is to wear your country's colours and go to a world championship. It was kind of surreal a little bit, thinking, wow, I've got to this standard of trail running, and to go and race in Annecy on the world stage against some of the best runners in the world at the time was just an amazing experience. And I had a really reasonable good race there. I was in some really good shape, in probably my best 2015 was probably my fittest year, other than perhaps last year. And so, I didn't nail the race. My finish down the last hill I was fatigued and probably had pushed it a little too hard. But I hung on for, what was it, about 20th place, I think. And that was enough to help support the team to a bronze, which was being able to stand on that podium and receive a medal is great.
How did that championships compare to the adventure racing ones that you'd done? Was it kind of similar feelings, or is the one that you're more proud of?
I mean, the adventure races take you to a whole different level in terms of suffering. I guess it's equatable to doing the spine, in the sense that long journey, and you've really had to work to get to the finish line. And it was about being in a good team to get to the World Championships. Whereas this was slightly different because it was much more performance based in terms of it's 50 miles and the duration in relative is still raceable, and you're pushing very hard. And the fact that you've been selected for your country by a panel, and that you've earned that performance in a specific sport, it was a really proud moment in a different way.
Had that, I mean, going back to when you were, like you said, a teenager at Tring Running Club, doing that kind of, it was Tring Running Club, wasn't it? If I get that. Yeah. Was there ever that kind of inclination or desire to run internationally? Or was it like, if somebody had said to you when you were that young, like, oh, Kim, you could end up getting a GB vest, would you just be like, oh, don't be so daft? Did you, or was there maybe that little seed ever in there inside? No,
it was never really on the radar at all. It's one of those things that slowly creeps ever closer. The more you do, the more experience you get, the better you get, the closer those goals become. I guess it didn't really come onto the radar until 2014 at that Lakeland 50, that I was knew what the outcome could be, and being a Lake District race and knowing the route and having that knowledge, it was that opportunity. That I think that was the first time I really thought about it as potential. Maybe the year before in 2013, but still then it wasn't. Oh, this is what I could achieve.
Yeah, excellent. Kind of talking about the Lakeland 50 and ties in with a bit Bob Graham, and we'll explore this a little bit more. But Phil Haddock's kind of asked, what would be your 3 best tips for doing the Lakeland 50 and Bob Graham? So you can kind of concise little kind of 3 tips for the Lakeland.
Learn to hike well, because a lot of it is actually hiking up hills rather than running. So the more you can practice and become efficient at hiking up hills, as the majority of the time is going uphill, and then try and practice the downhill, so you become more adapt and comfortable and smooth running downhill. You don't necessarily need to be breakneck fell running fast, but just so that your muscles are coping with the stresses of the downhill. And then train your stomach to so that you can eat and fuel the effort.
Brilliant. Yeah, great 3 tips there. I hope those help, Phil. And if you're doing a Lakeland 50, good luck with the training. Or if you've got Bob Graham lined up and you want a good coach, get in touch with Kim. He'll get you kind of set and ready to have a go at Bob Graham. I'm sure you've got quite a few athletes you're working towards that race. So you went from, so 2015 was your first GB vest. You had 2 GB vests, haven't you? You then got a second one.
The second one didn't go so well. I DNF'd. I fell probably in the first third, just before the first aid station and came quite heavily on like a hard track running downhill, caught the toe, just went, and then it wasn't until that accumulated, and then the joints and everything out, and then it wasn't until like the next aid station that it was just going backwards. I wasn't running properly anymore, so it was quite a disappointing end, really. So a high of 2015 and then the doldrums of 2016, and then it was quite a tough couple of years with overtraining and injury niggling that's just wasn't sorting itself out. It wasn't until probably 2017 that I could start. Late 2017, I started to get consistency back again.
Did you
and
at the time?
The goals.
Yeah. So did you recognise that it was the overtraining that was causing it, or were you in that kind of usual kind of running cycle of, I'm a bit injured, but I'll keep pushing. Yeah, it's bad luck. I'll just push it again. I'll have a bit of time off, and then in that kind of cycle. Phil says thanks for the tips, by the way.
It was more that just in that cycle of overtraining and going through that loop of not actually solving the problem, and it's more now in hindsight of recognizing it as a coach and with reflection, going, okay, that's what I was doing, and that's the nature of being a type A athlete, of a pusher, constantly trying to get the best out of yourself and do more and more and more. That you go, okay, you finally got to the point where I needed to stop running, start swimming, and my fix was actually a lot of strength training to readjust and rebalance my muscles, and then start building the running back in. And now I recognise the points of breakdown sooner and try and adjust the training to that.
Yeah, and that's great as a coach, having experienced that yourself as well, because then you'll see that in athletes as well and pass that on, because I think there is that real danger in ultra running with our egos, that we kind of like, that we're scared that if we do less, that we're not going to be able to complete the races or the challenge we set ourselves on. But sometimes less is more, because we need the recovery, don't we? We need time off between races. We can't keep putting big volume in every week.
Yeah, it's trying to recognise your weaknesses and try and adjust to them, and it's that blind spot that you have, and slowly you have to reflect on that, and the more experience you gain, everything, you start identifying those problems earlier. I would say I'm still new to coaching, only a few years into the process, so it's still a long journey to mastery, and it's that process of constant learning, going, okay, actually, how can I do the recovery better for my athletes and for myself to get the right training adaptations? It's that simple Steve Magnus, stress plus rest equals growth. On a very simple, and if we're not getting the rest, we're not getting the growth. So it's trying to be remembering that. However, you still need to do the hard work as well. There's no shying away from that.
Yeah, there's no shortcuts to fitness, is there, unfortunately? But yeah, it's always at that correct level. And Joe, who's obviously tuned in this evening and is watching live, it's an interesting convo, folks. I think that's how the cool kids talk, isn't it?
That's what the youth say.
That's what the youth are saying these days. Look, question here: what would you say are the key qualities to being a coach and an athlete? So it's kind of two questions there.
Ooh.
That's to put you on the spot, isn't it?
It's put me on the spot there, Joe. Patience for both, because it takes time. We were talking about that journey to being a GB athlete. It's those small incremental steps. It was a long process to get to that level, over years of building up endurance and speed to be able to run for GB. Also, as a coach, you've got to have I learned that skill as an outdoor instructor. You've got to be patient because you don't know what's going to be thrown at you, and you've got to adjust. Think about problems and solutions, trying to work that maybe that your solution is not someone else's. I think that's a key thing to think as a coach, that N doesn't equal 1. So that you don't get driven down that avenue. Listening and trying to, so you can try and understand your athletes, and listening to your body. Actually, what is it telling you? And don't do the typical it's okay, I'm going to ignore it. So there's a few.
Brilliant, excellent. Yeah, great answer. Brilliant. Hope that answers your question there, Joe. Brilliant. So you had that period then in the wilderness sort of thing, and that kind of... Did you ever feel you'd get back to the ultras? Was that desire there, or did you then play a bit of trail running? Because I remember you got on the front cover of the Trail Running magazine on the Belvedere Trail Race. Were you still playing around with trail running when you was in that kind of cycle of being broken, or did you just literally take a complete step back?
Yeah, I mean, it was I guess it wasn't so long. There was a few months out of it. Before then I was going through a cycle of races and braking and races and braking, and then once I started to fix, did put the racing back in, and there were ultras, but I wasn't at the same performance level. It took a while to rebuild those fitness levels back up to what I was at my peak, or getting close to that level. But I was still mixing. I still like to mix the short fell as key training for the ultra. I find it's quite motivational for hard workouts, in a sense, for me, rather than necessarily just focusing on that one big ultra race and everything is in that game. I think that partly suits the culture of trail running, is that race and enjoy that experience of competing. Over the years, though, that I've got more selective in the racing that I did do, so it wouldn't be every week, it'd be every 3 weeks, and try and pick the ones that had more importance, that you wanted to really push hard for. So there's a bit of wisdom there, and I guess COVID kind of shortened that into, well, let's just train for one big goal thing that might happen eventually.
Yeah. Do you have a favourite fell race?
My favourite fell race is my doorstep fell race. It's Blencathra fell race. Because it's a brilliant midweek 8-mile race, and I'd love going around that loop daily. Wasdale fell race, I just love the toughness of it as an AL. It is an ultra of a fell race, and it's just brilliant. I think they're probably two of my favourite.
Brilliant. Yeah, I mean, I have full admiration for trail runners, because it's not like any other kind of discipline of running. It's not like being a track runner or a road runner or a marathon runner, because to be a top trail runner, you've got to be able to do a 2-mile short kind of Bonsall Hill fell race, to then being able to do kind of 4 hours at Wasdale or Ennerdale or Borrowdale. You've got to be able to master that full range of distance, and it's just unbelievable to see the athletes. The guys at the top of the trail running game are just absolutely phenomenal, just unbelievable.
And you got to train a whole range of different aspects to be good. As you say, you've got to have some endurance be able to last the ALs, but you've still got to have a speed element to do the 2 mile or the short up and down races that are like a park run intensity in a full range in between. And then for me, it's then extending it to ultra and pushing those boundaries. And for me, it's transition, trying to learn. For me, I could race up to 80k or 50 miles and feel like it was just an extension of a long trail race, where beyond that, going towards the 100 mile, or it shifts to another gear, that a whole lot more of aspects of things that can go wrong if you try and race it hard can go wrong quickly. So that I kind of enjoyed that aspect of
we had a question that came up just a little bit back about whether can you find that one? It's about your kind of mountain leader background coming into play for those. It's from Rich Simpson. He said that he was a mountain leader before getting into trail running, and he found that background helped massively. Was it the same for you too, and would you recommend mountain knowledge to others?
Yeah, I mean, it's about confidence and being able to assess things and risk manage in the mountains. So if you've got that outdoor mountain leader education, you're taught about the basics of safety and weather and being in the mountains. You're able to go, okay, what kit do I need for the day? What are those sounds? Mountain judgment for Joe, and when to call it a day, come off early, or when to push through, or actually I need to take my micro spikes and ice axe today, and so on. And having that experience really helps to have that confidence to go and train for 5 or 6 hours in the mountains when it's not pleasant, and in the middle of January. It builds that up. So definitely it's a good route, and confidence over rough terrain. Just being able to cope with what the Lake District or Scotland or Wales throws at you on those steep fells.
So what conditions did you have for your winter, Bob Graham?
Two separate conditions. Yeah. The first one was in snow, and I had micro spikes on for 90% of the day, and it was wading, and it was a full-on winter Bob Graham in true conditions. And the second one, for the record, was really, really cold, but still. And I mean, the hoarfrost on the back of Blencathra was magnificent, but all the ground was frozen, so it's quite good firm footing with spiked shoes on. So it made it quite quick running. You could deal with running in the dark. I mean, half of it was still in the dark, and then when the sun did come up, it was a beautiful sunny blue sky day. Although it was only like for 8 hours, it was perfect conditions for it.
Yeah, we've got a photo of you coming up now, actually, which I think is on the final summit.
I think it's on Robinson's summit.
With my arms up.
I mean, yeah, you look at you posing away, stopping for the camera there.
Yeah, well, I mean, the record was well in doubt, and I had time to spare, so I was making most of that moment, which is a large part of running in the mountains for me, is those awe moments of, wow, this is awesome. Take it in.
So you still get that in the Lake District, even though you've done however many runs in all conditions there.
All the time. Every day is different. Every season, it's those magic moments that why I love running in the Lake District and running in the mountains, is just for that. The even in the worst conditions, you get that sense of satisfaction. Sometimes the worse it is, the more alive you feel.
Yeah, but you're really close to your house though, so you can just nip back afterwards as well. Can we get on to
But obviously you need to put the heating on because you're wearing your woolly hat, so maybe it's not that warm in the house, I don't know. Or is it just for sponsors? Is it just a bit of a kind of like...
I usually have more layers on in the house. I usually have a down jacket as well. If I'm not moving, I'm cold.
So can we get onto the Lakeland 24-hour record? Like, when did that get on your radar?
It's been on the radar for several years in the sense of knowledge about it, because helping Adam Perry on a couple of his attempts at the record. So I've always known about it, but it's always been his sort of project, and it was one of those things that was it's not possible for me. It's a bit too far out of the remit. So I guess I first thought about it was the next logical thing after the Winter Bob Graham record, because I thought, well, Killian's time, that's not really really feasible.
Why not?
So I did think about it back then in December of 2019, but in the end I decided I was going to focus on a Paddy Buckley and a Ramsey to complete the big three and have those, and because I hadn't done those, so that was going to be the goal for the spring and the summer before UTMB. That was my big grand plan. And then I was in a recce for the Paddy just before lockdown, and then everything changed. So it became a choice of, well, I'll keep training because something might happen in the summer. And I was still training for a Paddy, and it wasn't until 4 weeks before that Wales wasn't still opening, and I had access to the lakes, and it was, you could travel and you could do stuff now. But actually I thought, I'm actually in really good shape now. Maybe this is it. If I don't go now, I'm going to regret this, not having tried. So it kind of went, okay, what do I need to know before the attempt? I know the Bob Graham like the back of my hand from years of running on it and having done it a few times. It was now, how can I learn a few extra lines to the extra tops to do it? And that took a few recce's to get the extra legs, like going down into Langdale and back up to Blisco and linking Coal Pike into the Scar Fells. Doing the Northern Fells bit, that was close to home. So, and then I did a confidence boosting run, running that first leg and seeing what race pace felt like. And on a heavy legs, I still did it in under Mark Hartel's time or equivalent to it. So I thought, I've got race pace to start it. I've got endurance. So let's make it happen, and then organise a support team to help it happen.
So people probably have heard of the Bob Graham round because it's quite kind of a famous round, and a lot of runners aspire to it, especially after Rich Ashworth's book, Feet in the Cloud. So that's really what I know. What's the difference between that and the Lakeland 24 hours? So anybody who's kind of tuning in, listening in, going, well, what is it? Because a 24-hour running record, isn't it? Where you run so far for 24 hours. What is the difference between the Lakeland 24 hours? Because the Bob Graham you have to complete within 24 hours, don't you, if you want to be part of the club? What would you say the difference between the two are then?
Well, the Bob Graham was the 24-hour record at one stage when Bob Graham did it. And then people started to extend the Bob Graham, seeing how many tops they could add into the 24-hour record. And the history goes back before the Bob Graham for the 24-hour record. And Peter McDonald's done a really good website now with all the history of it that I think I shared earlier on Twitter. And it's on the Bob Graham Club Facebook page, and you can read all about it there. But it extended over the years of how many more tops can you add onto the Bob Graham. And then it got to a point where Josh Naylor did 75, and that was thought as the unbreakable record at that point. I think the history goes that about 5 people had attempts at it and got nowhere near close. I think even Billy Bland had a go, half-hearted go at it once and stopped halfway round, according to the notes. And then eventually Mark McDermott, it was quite controversial at the time because he'd done a spreadsheet and really recorded it and made it his A goal and put everything into it, and made it up to 76 tops from 72, I think it was, with Joss. And that was like, well, did he really do it or did he not? And it was like, how's this guy come and done it? And then at that point, the rules were kind of stipulated that to add extra tops, they had to be a certain distance and a certain height gain, and certain drop to be added extra tops. So it made it even harder to add further tops onto the records. So then Mark Cartel added Catsidy Cam onto the already round. So by the point I got to do it, to add an extra top, next logical ones were either Fleetwood Pike or Haycock. And to do that, it's about doing a Bob Graham and a half in 24 hours. So I think I measured it up. Well, my GPS measured it as 12,000 meters of ascent and 96 miles. So you've got to be shifting in sub 16 hour Bob Graham pace.
I'm just sharing the map of the route, so which people might be able to see, because it's an impressive. Does it have the same start and finish as the Bob Graham, or can you start and finish it anywhere on that route?
No, it has to be around. So you've got to start and finish at any point. Originally, at some points, some did start at Moot Hall and finish at the Moot Hall. Then in the, I think they did go from Grasmere at one point, but Mark McDermott decided that the best point to start at was Braithwaite, so he ran the road where it was fresh to get onto Skiddaw, and then finish off the northwestern fells running downhill into the finish. And since then, everyone else has replicated or attempted it, has done it from there, and it makes sense to me as well. What other stipulations?
So one of the stipulations is that you're doing the same tops, isn't it, as the previous record holder, and then
as the previous record holder, then either do it quicker or add one. So you know that what you've done is consistent with the previous record holder, and or better. So it's comparative, which I think it's important. It's like doing the same ultra course or same fell records. You know where your time stacks up, or in history, don't you?
Yeah,
definitely. And so going into it, you said you'd seen Adam doing this, and I think we've all kind of followed Adam's, because he had several attempts at it, didn't he? And it was really quite heartbreaking to watch. Sometimes he got really close to it and then was kind of thwarted by the weather or other things. So you'd kind of set this plan and you'd sorted your route out. How was your kind of mindset going into the challenge? Was it different than when you did the Bob Graham or the Winter Bob Graham, or was it a similar sort of kind of mindset going into it?
Yeah, very, very similar, in a sense that I was going it to race it, both rather than complete. I was there for getting the best out of myself possible, and the difference with the Winter Bob Graham is I knew with the right conditions that it was a very realistic possibility that I could beat Jim's time, and just that I knew if I went hard. So I don't think I got my optimum run at the Winter Bob Graham round. I think there's some sections where I felt I didn't need to push as hard to get the best result, because I was up on splits and doing well. Whereas the 24, with Adam's several failures, I knew that it was a chance that it would end in failure, and that was part of the excitement of it. It was that can it not? So I knew that I needed to go for it or not at all. It was everything or bust type run. But being controlled with that, I think the difference between this and a race was it's only you've got to control your factors. You're not racing someone else, so you can really hone into how you're feeling and adjust the pace to. I guess I went for it almost on Billy Band style of run to feel, and go for it, and that's what I did, and it kind of paid off just about.
And when did you know that you had the record? Was it near the end, or did you feel confident from the off how things were going?
I guess when you're up on splits, it breeds confidence in that you're feeling good. When you run leg round 1, feel good, really good, and you're up by a handful of minutes, and then going into 2, and you still pick up more time, and then you think, okay, have I gone too quick now? Am I going to blow up spectacularly? And then you just keep pushing. I was then growing in confidence. I got to Langdale and thought, okay, I still feel good. I'm getting tired and fatigued. I was able to, I thought the key leg was out of Langdale and to Wasdale. If you can get over those high fails and then not be losing at that point, and I was kind of holding steady and picking up minutes here and there. I got to Wasdale and you're up on time. I knew that I had that opportunity to add the top, and that gives you that confidence. From that point on, there I was starting to suffer, and up Ute Barrow was awful. I mean, I was trudging away and feeling nauseous and having to focus on eating. And so at that point, I decided not to add Haycock. That was my plan A. Go right, Haycock's plan. I like that run to Haycock and back. But then when you're on Red Pike, not feeling great, and you're looking at Haycock in the distance, thinking that looks like a big hill, I go through that and go for Fleetwood Pike, and I go, yeah, let's do that. And part of that was because I've got more time to make a decision on the extra top, and like ultra running, if you hang in there, if you start fueling and get the food in, you start to come back again and you feel good, and that's what happened. And the rest of that leg, I was starting to pick time up again. So you stand on grey knots and go, yeah, let's do it. So I kind of, when you get down to Honister and you're up on time on Mark Hartel's time, he was there, and you've got the extra top, it's on here. You think, yes, I'm not in a great state, but I've got time in the bag, and there's still his buffer of 15 minutes or 13 minutes before the 24-hour up to play with. Unfortunately, at that stage, everything went really, really quite tough. It was a real mental barrier against stomach, against nausea, against not moving quick enough to actually, yes, I can move quick enough, and that whole inner turmoil of an end of an ultra when you're on the edge. And then when darkness fell, the mist came down on Crag Hill, and you had 1 meter visibility, trying to rely on the pacers to navigate you the optimum lines and see where you're putting your feet, and knowing that minutes are starting to disappear. And so it was, you start doing the mental arithmetic, a few tops out, have I got enough in the bag, and can I do it? And you start to realise just got to keep ticking through and you'll get there. And it wasn't until top of Grisdale Pike that I knew it was going to happen, barring disaster. And that euphoria of running off there to the finish it just grew and grew to the end. It was amazing at that finish. That photo of me
We've just put that up now, yeah. I mean, that's just pure happiness in that face.
And that was that one moment that you live for, and train for. It was brilliant to do that.
Brilliant. I mean, interesting talking about your stomach going. So, I mean, one of the questions we had was like nutrition. So we always, people are always asking when they're training for a Bob Graham or preparing for a Bob Graham, what shall I eat? What kind of food? So what was your kind of nutrition strategy, or what did you have kind of planned out to eat? And were you kind of doing what you'd normally do for an ultra marathon or Bob Graham?
Yeah, so I've kind of aimed for training my body to try and cope with about 300 calories an hour, and then breaking that down into 20-minute blocks, trying to get 100 in every 20 minutes, and just to keep on top of that tank of fuel, because I was pushing quite a high intensity early on. I needed to be replacing that energy demand, and kind of early on at that stage, I kind of go for a 2-to-1 ratio of 2 sort of quick sugary, like either gels or goo sweets, and then 1 sort of solid food that gives the slower release carbs. And then as the event went on, I tried to institute more, or like reverse it into more solid foods, like a bit of pizza or crisps, or things that take longer to break down and give you that sort of slower release carb element to it. I did use a couple of long haul pouches as well, to try and add that supplement of salty, savoury food that was easily digestible. I think my main issue was actually, in the end, was drinking too much, because it wasn't as hot a day as for July. It was quite cool, which made for good running and good pushing, but I was drinking too much and probably not quite getting enough sodium for what I was drinking. So I ended up being slightly overhydrated, and so that was affecting. So to try and address that, it was getting some crisps in to try and rebalance that and reduce the intake of hydration. But then it just gets that point of I've eaten a lot of calories and a lot of food, and I'm not moving as quick anymore, and everything starts to backfire a little bit. It was a fine balance for me.
So do you tend to have like a set kind of food you eat on these runs, or do you always modify it depending on the kind of race or challenge that you're doing?
No, I modify it to the challenge and the conditions. So in midwinter, I would like on the last Steve Parr winter event that I tried, I was eating much more solid food, more wraps, more things that I made, more pizza, and less of the sweet energy, as my intensity was lower and it was colder, and that's easier to digest. I didn't need as much blood flow going elsewhere, whereas if it's hot, then I have gone for a liquid more type, the mountain fuel, liquid fuel as a source of adding in extra energy. It's just depending on the conditions and what I've been trying out to work for me. But I do try and get a core set of things that I know work for me, that gives me that bit of savoury, a bit of saltiness, a bit of slow release carb, and a bit of quick release carb as well, to try and mix what works for me, to balance that off.
Is there anything though that Kim Collison goes for in those dark moments in a race? Is there like anything, in case of emergency break glass, this is what I'm going to have, or does it just tend to be whatever you're kind of brought along for the race?
I guess salt and vinegar crisps are generally a good winner for me.
And any brand you want to plug, and we'll see if we can get a sponsorship deal for you on. I tried Seabrooks for years, but they never listened, so I'm begrudgingly by them.
So now you've had quite a bit of time kind of reflecting on that record. Is there anything kind of left unfinished? Do you think that could go quicker with the right conditions? Because you didn't have like particularly super dry conditions, I don't think, when you did it. Or do you think that top, extra top, is there?
Is Fleetwood still there?
I think. I think there is an extra top there. I mean, for the right person on the right day. I generally believe that. I think my splits show that someone goes equally as quick and doesn't fade as much in the last bit. There's spectrum to add haycock. I mean, it would be maybe taking it down more to the wire. I had 15 minutes spare when I finished, and I was fading on that last, probably from the top of Robinson onwards. So there is 25, 30 minutes to add that top if you get it right. So
is that something that you might look at some point, or do you feel like that's you done on that unless somebody comes up and...
I've invested myself fully into that process of getting into the shape I was to be able to run that fast and to push it. I think I wouldn't be as motivated to go back and add a top. I think it will take someone else to do that. It's got that equal motivation.
Interestingly, talking about kit, there's a great picture of you and the amazing Steve Birkinshaw going up. I think is it coming out Dunmail Rays, going up to and as a fell runner. Well, I know you use these in the Alps as well, but you're using poles in the lakes. Is there something like, if somebody's attempting a BG, would you kind of go, because I noticed like Beth Pascal did her Bob Graham when she broke the women's record, she used poles as well, and in the fell running they're a bit of a touchy subject, aren't they? Should you be using poles, should you not be using poles?
Well, clearly my view is in that picture. I think that they're a thing that help with propulsion up the hill, or they help with I think the changing of the muscles, so they you're able to use your muscles slightly differently using poles, so that actually the fatigue is less on other places. So I think it's a key thing. You look at ultras in the Alps, and a lot of Europeans use them, and the number of people use them is kind of shows why it works. It's helpful. So it's still other people would like to be more traditionalist and won't use fells, and it's not part of fell running. That's not my view, and I'm quite happy to use them. I wouldn't use them in a fell race.
I'd love to see you turn up at a fell race. Next picture of you on the front cover of the FRA doing Borrowdale with a set of poles. But did you use them for the whole way round, and even like going over at Bowfell and up on Scarfell Range, were you using the poles the whole time there, or did you ever kind of put them away on some of that rocky technical ground?
No, pretty much any uphill I was using them. Any flat or downhill I'd handed them over to my pacers to help with that process.
Joe's just asked about the pacers. It was really about the decision making, and were you calling the shots as which extra top you went on, or whether pacers getting involved? And I suppose that's something that I quite like to ask. Like, you talk about that that dialogue of like, oh, it's all going to the wire. Are you just calm and collected, or were you relying a lot on your pacers to keep your head in it then?
I think it was a changing picture. I think a large part of it was selecting and getting the right people for the right legs that you had confidence in. For the first leg, you got to have someone that can run pretty fast over the fells for 4 hours. So you're down to a handful of runners when I'm fresh and tapered and going for it. And then using, having Adam on leg 2 with his knowledge of the route just helped me save time. Just his knowledge, not over the years that he's accumulated to get from Great Rig Man round to Seat Sandal and that traverse. Just being able to switch off and follow in those footsteps makes a huge amount of energy saving. Just you be able to consciously think, switch off, and not know where the lines are. Just follow feet. So those are important. Then later on, it's having people that you could trust and rely on for navigation in the dark. That don't necessarily need to be the fastest runners, because you're now moving at a relatively slower pace after 24 hours that someone with fresh legs can easily keep up. That that can navigate, that have the conditions, that have been over it, that know you really well. So having fellow Out of Bound instructors on that leg that I'd worked with for at various stages, that I had Adam, who was definitely the enforcer, and an ability to push me and shout at me and say, come on, you need to push. And then having someone being reassuring and going, come on, you can do it. On navigation, Matt was out front, just making sure that I could follow him, and I trusted that process. So having the right people really helps. And I think part of it is sharing as well what you might be like and what you need. As a some people really need to be pushed, others need encouragement, and it's just knowing what you need and sharing that, and I will go quiet, I will go into my own hole, or just be focused on moving. It's okay if I'm not talking. You can talk at me, but you won't get much back, sort of.
Just offer you some crisps as well.
Yeah, on the last few legs, I was definitely in that place. Every energy was in movement forwards, and at the hardest effort I could manage. So,
that's quite a common place to end up in an ultramarathon, isn't it? In these countries. So, do you have a mantra or a phrase, or is there something, any kind of mindset you take yourself into when or are you just literally just withdrawn and focusing on that one moment?
There is, I guess, mantras wise, they vary. I've used different mantras to help me, or not, or to keep strong and keep focused. I think what came me, what was I saying? I was shouting out, "You're strong." I think, or at the end, I think it was "You're strong," if I remember it right. Someone will correct me. You
can't remember anyway. Yeah, there's like someone with Tourette's in the background.
I was actually verbalising and shouting it and out to help me pick up the pace. Mm-hmm. When I dropped and I was slowing, when I verbalised it, shout it, I would pick up and I'll get stronger and I'd be able to push more. So yeah, in a way, I was using mantras, and I think they are important. And they kind of help, and sometimes attaching meaning to them. What helped for me was the end goal. I was up on splits and focused towards that one achievement. So there's that bit of extrinsic there as well.
Yeah. Jim Walmsley, when he was doing the 100k at the weekend, as frustrating it was to see that he missed it, but he was shouting himself. You could hear him just kind of shouting out, and it's amazing how that just kind of picks you up, boosts you that little bit, just verbalising or even just some grunting.
Have you spoken to Mark Artell at all after the record? And because it was a pretty long-standing record that he had there, and I wondered if he chatted to him at all about it.
So I haven't spoken to him in person yet, but he wished me luck before the event and congratulated me afterwards. And hopefully in October, if we get to a Bob Graham dinner, hopefully he'll come across and we'll get to hand over the presidency and talk about it and share our experiences, and that would be great to be able to do that. Pandemic allowing.
That's the proviso for everything at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah, brilliant. Look, we've been chatting for an hour and a quarter already.
Yes.
We've just got kind of, so there's always this kind of, so you've done the Lakeland 24-hour record, and there's always kind of what next, and Chris Marrett has kind of got a question maybe we can post and post to as well maybe. So he's asked a question: what about Paul Tierney's record for the 214 Wainwrights? Is that on your radar?
I think this is a rumour that's following you for quite a while now, isn't it? I know Ian Corliss asked you this on his podcast too.
It is, and it's. And if you read the Fell Runner with all the articles of the FKTs last summer, there's a little paragraph just below my bit in it that goes through all on Martin Stone's thing that mentions the last person to hold the Pennine Way, the Wainwrights, and the 24-hour record was Joss Naylor, and that's it. And I think I got a text message from Matt Neal implying that as well. So it's like, go on, push.
It's fate. You don't have any choice.
It grows. What's the next big challenge? It's not this year.
If we're still in lockdown next year, then maybe you'll have time to train.
Yes, maybe next.
Or if UTMB doesn't happen in September, then maybe the autumn.
There's a couple other people will be possibly going for it this year. Sabrina again, I imagine, and I wouldn't be surprised if Mr. Kelly himself would be going for it at all. What do you do after the Grand Round? I think that would be more logical for him than me at the moment.
Yeah, brilliant.
I think it takes somebody living in the lakes to give that one a go.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because you've got to know all the, like you're saying with Adam Perry knowing all the lines, and it's saying when you're doing any Bob Graham pacing, you rely on people with that local knowledge. You need to know some of the lines. You need to know some of that lay of the land. I think it does help with having a bit of that Lakeland knowledge.
So we're backing you.
No pressure.
There's no races, and that might be the only thing.
You're not allowed out of Cumbria. We're going to put you in there.
Fantastic, Kim. Well, it's been absolutely fantastic, wonderful chatting to you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you for your time this evening. I'm just going to kind of bring us all back together. If you've enjoyed this podcast, make sure you tune in next week. You can listen to it as a podcast. I kind of jumped ahead there a little bit. Next week we're geeking out, aren't we?
Yeah, we're going for heart rate training stats.
So we're going to get our geek on there. So come along and listen to that one, Kim, as a coach. Find out a bit more about using some heart rate training as well. But thank you all for those who have been with us live tonight. We will be here again next week, 6:30 Wednesday evening. We apologise for Sherlock snoring as well if you've heard some background noise in. At least he's not been kind of jumping around like last week. But stay safe, everybody. Keep running, keep yourself moving, and look after yourselves.
Keep dreaming after that inspiration.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. And if you want to know and get some coaching tips from Kim, his website link's down below. You can hook up with him if you want some help preparing for Bob Graham. I'm sure he's the man who can get you in tip-top shape for doing it. So thank you again, Kim, for joining us. It's been a fantastic time. We've learned so much and found so much out about you as well. So thank you for letting us probe you and get into your ultra running. Not in that kind of sense. We're not going double entendre. Brilliant. Thanks very much, Kim. Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Thanks, Kim.